What's going on today, ladies and gentlemen? Christian Hannah Horror here. This is a video I wanted to do. It's something I want to talk about. It's something that I never really dive into per se. And if you're one of those people that is going to be looking for a lot of really technical aspects of this video, you're not gonna get it. But I'm gonna do my best to try to dive into some of the technical differences between the two formats. But I really just want to talk about why I prefer Laserdisc and collecting Laserdisc for my retro media, as opposed to VHS. Now, I've got some examples here. I've got some of the same movies on VHS and Laserdisc that I want to show you guys, and I want to talk about it. So let me give you a little backstory about how I got into Laserdisc. I'm one of those kids that grew up, a lot of people have no idea what Laserdisc is, never heard of it, yada yada, but I was actually one of those people that actually knew what Laserdisc was growing up, and the reason I know about Laserdisc was I remember being a, 11-year-old kid, maybe even younger than that, but probably between 10 and 12. I can remember I lived in a neighborhood with some friends, and one of my friends, we were at this house one time. I'm sitting in front of the couch, kind of on the ground, watching the television set, and there was a little, little table just like this where you put your drinks on next to the couch, and below it was this little milk carton box deal with, I thought they were records, and I remember I was just kind of being nosy sitting there, but I was like, Predator, Terminator 2, these are records. And then I asked about them. I was like, you guys have, records? These are cool. And then the parents were like, no, those are called laser discs. And I was like, what's that? And they told me, and they told me what they were. And I remember just never forgetting about that. The laser disc doesn't come back into my brain until years later. But becoming a horror fan, I was like, I want to collect some classic movies. And I just remember thinking about that story of the laser disc. And so I did a little bit of research, and I started learning a little about Laserdisc, how a lot of people may be surprised that Laserdisc is not a digital format. These discs are analog, meaning they're not the first digital format. It's kind of like a vinyl in a sense. Laserdisc and vinyl, there's no compression on vinyls, and Laserdiscs are analog. They're not digitized. All the audio on the Laserdisc, you may notice if you listen to Laserdisc, the audio, especially if you listen through a sound system, it's going to be huge. It's going to be massive. The audio is there. It's real. It was one of the first formats to really put, the filmmakers first, in a sense. That's where you saw movies and more of the ratio and the film aspect of the way they were filmed. Things weren't like VHS where it was cropped, zoomed to fit those square TVs, because remember when we were little, TVs weren't widescreen, they were boxes. And VHSs were zoomed in to eliminate the black space that you would have seen on your television set if the movie would have been shown in the aspect ratio that you would see it in a theater, widescreen. It's funny, when Laserdisc really started getting kind of popular around the early 90s and they were releasing, widescreen edition, people would think something was wrong with their movies, because you would get your television set and then you would see black lines on top and bottom. Now, when we watch it, we say, okay, well, this is widescreen, and we get it. But back in the day, people were like, is something wrong with my TV? Why is it not filling up the screen? Well, that's because TVs weren't designed for widescreen back in the day, unless you were really rich, and maybe they had TVs back in the early 90s, late 80s that had this. But, widescreen was really, established in Laserdisc. Laserdisc had a lot of things that people don't realize. Laserdisc was maybe the first format to really have special features. Laserdiscs had audio commentaries on them. Laserdisc had chapter searches. The DVD and Blu-ray owe a lot to Laserdisc. Laserdisc is like an unsung hero in the media world, and I'm just a big Laserdisc fan. So I want to talk to you guys. Here's a few things that I like of Laserdisc more than VHS. Now, I want to stop and say, I'm not saying one is better than the other. If you like VHS, excellent. If you like Laserdisc, great. One of the main things I like about Laserdisc over VHS, and this is not a watching thing, but is the artwork. Now, I know what you're probably saying, well, what do you mean artwork? Well, let me give you an example. Here's Jason Takes Manhattan. Now, here is the VHS of Jason Takes Manhattan. Just like watching the movie on itself on a VHS, is the picture's going to be zoomed and cropped. Well, on the Laserdisc, you get all the art that was intended to be shown. As you can see, the art is much more prominent. It's wider. You get to see all of Jason's hands on here. You get to see the art that was intended to be shown. As you can see, the VHS crops out the art. Now, that may be petty to some people, but for somebody that is a big fan of horror movies, horror collecting, I just love the little things. And one thing that's great about Laserdisc, especially with, collecting them, is getting to see the artwork that's intended. I have other examples I'd like to show you guys. Here is A Nightmare on Elm Street. Once again, here's the VHS tape. You get to see Nancy in the back. Well, here is the Laserdisc. As you can see, the picture's wider. You get to see more of the art on the front of the movie. I want to show you guys another example with Nightmare on Elm Street. If you were a movie buff back in the day, Laserdisc was an also big way to go because of things like this. Collector's edition. Another thing that I think got really prominent with Laserdiscs for movie fans and people of media fans is special editions. I think this is what's cool about this is there is things on here that I don't think that have ever been released on later formats. So this media piece is still relevant today. Like I said, you've got, special features, digital transfers. You've got the aspect ratio that the movie was filmed in on here. Over 30 minutes of deleted scenes and never before seen footage. Like I said, special features. This looks like the back of a Scream Factory Blu-ray, when they kill the special features and stuff. Laserdisc made this, a thing. And, the artwork, great artwork in here. Another reason I like Laserdisc more is look at all this beautiful pictures and stuff. You can't get this in a VHS case. You get all kinds of tidbits about the movie. Scene selections, as I've said, this is all supplemental footage down here. Great stuff, and this is another reason I like Laserdisc is just look at the artwork on this. It's special edition. It's incredible. It's elite entertainment. Another example of art that is cropped out on VHS covers is here you go, Pet Sematary VHS. Nothing wrong with that. Looks great, but you get more of the image on this Laserdisc. I just love it. I love it. So, I got one more example I'll show, and that is Hellraiser. Now, this is going to be interesting because I don't have a regular Laserdisc release of Hellraiser. What I have is this. The Clive Barker's Hellraiser Deluxe, Laserdisc set. Bought this from my buddy Sean, who watches my videos regularly. Bought this from him. Now, what's great about this is... Oh, Lord have mercy. What's interesting is this Laserdisc cover actually doesn't show as much art on the front as, this VHS. Which is, interesting, but look at all this. Bios, pictures of Clive Barker. Once again, scene selections, great stuff. You've got special features, audio track information. Just great art. And what was interesting about that set is it has the original manuscript of Hellraiser, the original script, and it is autographed by the man himself, Clive Barker. Just another thing about Laserdisc that I just think is phenomenal. Another reason I like Laserdisc over VHS is storage. And I know you may be saying, what do you mean storage? Laserdiscs are huge. Let me show you something. Okay. Now, when you put a VHS on a shelf, it's going to go like this in the shelf. When you put a Laserdisc in the shelf, it doesn't even, take a third. I think maybe 4 or 5 Laserdiscs will equal the thickness of a VHS. So I'm able to fit 4 times the movies on a shelf with collecting Laserdisc, which is really important. It's nice to be able to display some Laserdiscs, this way so you can see the art on the front. But that is very important to me. Another reason I like Laserdisc. And there's such a nostalgia with the Laserdisc, and what's interesting about it is, Laserdiscs are really starting to get expensive. When I first got into the Laserdisc collecting game around 2010, I remember getting movies cheap. I was getting Leprechaun 2 for $5, Pet Sematary for $10, but there's really been a a resurgence, not necessarily a resurgence in them, but just a price gouging, if you will, of Laserdisc. For instance, like one thing that's unfortunate is, like, if you want to get this Jason Takes Manhattan on Laserdisc, especially in the condition that this one's in, which is, I would give it a 9.5 out of 10. It's just a flawless release of this, is gonna cost you probably between $70 and $100, and you maybe can get it cheaper if you're lucky. But if you try to go on eBay and find them, they're expensive, but they're gorgeous pieces of media. And it's just the package of Laserdisc. They look fantastic. The audio is another big reason I like Laserdisc over VHS, is because I agree that sometimes better picture quality doesn't necessarily make a movie better. Sometimes watching a cult classic, early 80s slasher movie is going to be more, authentic on an old VHS tape than a Scream Factory Blu-ray release. I agree with that. But Laserdisc is not going to upscale it always so much that you lose that. For instance, watching this Jason Takes Manhattan Laserdisc, it's got a slightly better picture than this VHS is going to have. But the audio, guys, this is where we got to get into this. The audio is going to sound phenomenal. I mean, 100% phenomenal, especially with the new soundbar I got in my living room. The new 55-inch TV I got in there. The audio is going to sound big. It's going to sound, it's analog. It's not going to be compressed. The sound is going to be fantastic. At least that's my understanding. If any Laserdisc, smart guys that really know the information on this, I can tell you this. I popped this in my TV as an experiment and listened to this VHS, and the audio is just, it almost sounds like a cassette, tape that you would, like, audio cassette tape. It kind of has that kind of sound with this VHS, not surprisingly. But this, to me, has what would be more of like a vinyl, big, crispy sound on this Laserdisc. When that Darkest Side of the Night kicks in, it's phenomenal. So that's some of the reasons I just love Laserdisc. And being a vinyl collector, I tend to draw to that. Now, these VHSs are great. I love collecting VHS. Unfortunately, if you see this video and you say, oh, well, Laserdisc looks cool, I want to get into them, it's going to be kind of expensive to get some of these titles. If you want the Friday the 13th movies on Laserdisc, you're going to pay a nasty price. I have the whole set. Took me years to find them. Part 7 is the hardest one. Any Laserdisc horror fan knows that Part 7 is the most elusive one. But that's some of the reasons I like Laserdisc. Once again, I'm not pretending to be, the technical, the guy who's going to tell you all the differences and this and that, of this and that. But this is why I like them, And I know a lot of Laserdisc guys, Culture Dog's one guy, that they know I'm not the guy who understands all the technicalities, but they know why I love it, and they still love it for the same reasons I do. Laserdisc is a great, nostalgic, retro home video format. And if you ever find one at a Goodwill, you ever find one, and especially a horror movie, pick it up. They're really cool, and they're very underappreciated. As I said, a lot of classic things that we know today, or a lot of things we know today, such as scene selections, not rewinding, special features, audio commentaries. Laserdisc had those. So we owe a lot to Laserdisc in the way of formats and the way we experience watching movies now. Widescreen, that was all Laserdisc. So much respect and love to Laserdisc. They're an unsung hero. But that's going to wrap up this video, guys. I hope you guys got something out of this. If not, it's enjoyable to make this video. So that's it. Laserdisc is cool, guys. So give it a shot. Like I said, if you ever come across one in the store, just looking, grab it. You may be surprised, and you may enjoy them more than you think. So that's it for this video, guys. This is Christian Hannah Horror. We'll see you guys next time.